You know the drill. We've all been there. You're trying to log into something, maybe buy a ticket for a show, post a comment, and then, bam, you get stopped in your tracks by this one, sometimes super frustrating demand.
Right? Whether it's trying to make out some wavy, distorted text, or clicking on every single picture with a traffic light, or maybe just ticking a simple box that says, "I'm not a robot." This little thing has become a universal gatekeeper on the internet. And let's be honest, it feels like a tiny, constant chore we all have to do. But have you ever stopped to think about why? Why does the internet keep asking us for this weird little proof of our humanity, over and over again? Well, it's a really good question. And the answer? It actually takes us back to the early, kind of chaotic days of the web. It's the story of a digital arms race, one that's still going on right now.
Okay, so to get why this gate even exists, you first have to understand the problem it was built to solve. This wasn't just put there for fun. It was a defense mechanism built out of pure necessity to fight back against a full-blown invasion.
I want you to imagine the early internet is this total digital Wild West. No fences, no locks, wide open. And while that sounds great, it quickly became a paradise for these automated programs, what we call bots. And no, these weren't the friendly, helpful kind. They were basically digital pests, designed to exploit the whole open system for some pretty shady reasons. And these bots were causing some real problems. I'm talking about flooding your email and blog comments with endless spam, creating millions of fake accounts on social media to spread junk and misinformation. They were scraping websites, stealing private data like our email addresses. And hey, you ever tried to buy a concert ticket the second it goes on sale, only to see it's completely sold out? Yep, you can thank bots for that a lot of the time. Clearly, something had to be done.
So, facing all this chaos, a team of researchers at Carnegie Mellon University came up with this brilliantly simple idea. They thought, what if we could build a wall that only a human could climb over, but a computer couldn't even see? And they gave it this wonderfully nerdy and perfect name, CAPTCHA. It's actually an acronym, and it lays out its job description perfectly. It stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. Basically, a quick automatic test for any website to use, all to sort the humans from the bots. Now, the absolute genius of the original idea was how it took advantage of a huge difference between us and machines back then. See, our brains are incredible at pattern recognition. We can look at that messy, stretched out, distorted text, and our brain just goes, oh yeah, that's a word. But for a computer program in the early 2000s, it was just a meaningless jumble of pixels and lines, a total mess. It was a piece of cake for us, but was nearly impossible for them. The wall was officially built. But here's the thing about security on the internet. No wall stands forever. The second the test was created, you can bet that the bot makers started figuring out how to break it. And this kicked off a huge technological cat and mouse game that, believe it or not, is still going on today. You see, as artificial intelligence and machine learning got more and more powerful, the bots started to evolve. They were trained on millions of these distorted text puzzles until, eventually, they got even better than we are at solving them. That original wall, it was starting to crumble.
So the test had to evolve too. After that first wave of distorted text, we saw a brand new system pop up around 2007 called reCAPTCHA. Then, a few years later, came the image puzzles we all know. Click on all the buses, or find the crosswalks. And now, more recently, the test has pretty much gone invisible, just working quietly in the background. But I want to go back for a second to that 2007 moment, to reCAPTCHA. Because this wasn't just some small update. It was an absolute stroke of genius. It took the power of all those millions of people doing these little security checks and used it for an incredible, kind of secret purpose. So here's how this brilliant idea worked. Every time you were shown two of those warped words, one of them was a word the system already knew the answer to. That was the real test. But the other word? That was a scan from an old book, a word that a computer's own scanning software couldn't figure out. So if you got the known word right, the system just trusted that you probably got the unknown one right too. This means that you and millions of other people were helping to digitize the entire world's library of books, one single word at a time. Yeah. Every time you proved you were human, you were also preserving a tiny piece of human history. Pretty amazing, right? And that brings us to today, because this cat and mouse game has gotten so sophisticated that it's starting to poke at some really big, almost philosophical questions. The truth is, the ability of AI to pass these human-only tests has just skyrocketed over the last few years.
The things we used to think were uniquely human, reading weird text, spotting objects in a picture, AI can now do those things incredibly well. Sometimes even better than us. So the old tests, they just don't work anymore.
So the test had to change again. The latest versions of CAPTCHA often don't even ask you to do anything. Instead, it just watches. It analyzes your behavior behind the scenes. How do you move your mouse across the screen? Is it in a perfectly straight robotic line, or is it that slightly wobbly, imperfect curve that a human hand makes? How fast are you typing? It's literally looking for the subtle, biological messiness that makes our behavior, well, human.
Which, of course, leads to this really fascinating and honestly a little unsettling question. We're in this constant race to find new ways to prove that we're human, while AI is in a race to get better and better at mimicking us. So what happens when our behavior, our mouse movements, our typing styles can be perfectly faked? What kind of test could possibly come next? And really, that's the final thought here. That little annoying checkbox we see almost every day, it's actually the front line of a really deep and evolving conversation about identity. If a machine can imitate a human so perfectly online that it can pass every single test we throw at it, then how do we even define the line between us anymore? What does it truly mean to be human in a world that's becoming more and more digital? It's something to think about for sure, the next time you have to click on all the squares with a bicycle. Thanks for watching.